Hello everyone, welcome aboard. In this country risk seminar, we shall discuss a number of exciting issues such as economic and financial risk, social institutional risk, geopolitical risk, global risk, as well as contagion and spillover. But let's wait a minute. Risk is everywhere, including at times and in places people do not expect it. But what does risk mean exactly, and where does risk come from? Well, if you could predict risk always and perfectly, you could close your eyes and run your family and business affairs while sipping a glass of champagne. Risk always catches you off guard, and you wake up too late while reading the front page of the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal. The only thing that you know is that risk is the unknown. Risk is rooted into uncertainty, which itself stems from a deficit of information. That will be the thrust of the whole seminar. But risk is not always negative. It is not always a threat. If you do not take risk, you get stuck in stalemate. Peter Bernstein gives a very fascinating story of risk since the origin of mankind, and he stresses that risk that stems from the Italian risicare, that is, to dare, is a choice and not a fate. That means that the key is to reduce uncertainty with access to updated and reliable information, which must be transformed into economic intelligence. Gathering information, enhancing the quality of economic intelligence are two keys for mitigating uncertainty and facilitating risk management. That's the very purpose of this seminar on country risk strategy. Information availability is in itself a measure of risk. I mean, if a government or a company or a bank is unable or unwilling to provide reliable information, statements or data, that's a matrix of riskiness. Take, for example, the external debt of a country like Tunisia. If you look at the website of the central bank today, you get 2014 and 2015 data regarding solvency indicators such as debt to GDP, which is presented at 44%, whereas the actual figure is closer to 60%. So opacity is a measure of risk, and it increases uncertainty, hence higher cost and longer delays. Thanks to Knight and Keynes in 1921, we can make a crucial distinction between risk and uncertainty. Knight gives a focus on two notions. Risk stems from unknown outcomes that can be tackled with probability distribution, while uncertainty must be restricted to cases of non-quantitative occurrences, such as political upheaval, corruption, or bad governance. The manager's environment shifts from uncertainty toward risk when the probability of all outcomes can be determined precisely. And Keynes asserted that probability was the rational guide to life because the calculus of probability can reduce opacity. The key to reducing risk is reducing uncertainty, hence to get access to reliable information. That will make possible for risk managers to measure uncertainty with probability distribution. When you get lost with unforeseen contingencies or with conflicting opinion or worse, conflicting evidence, then you face ambiguity and you throw dice. Now, how can you measure uncertainty and establish a risk management strategy? Well, look, you have a country with high inflation and rising balance of payments deficit and shrinking reserves, as well as capital flight. Then you can measure the probability of an exchange rate depreciation or a full-blown devaluation, and you can measure the impact on both imports and exports thanks to elasticity of supply and demand. Now, in case of upcoming elections, think of Donald Trump, or a high rate of electoral abstention, think of France. This is a combination of ambiguity and complexity. Now, the concept of risk has emerged around the Renaissance. Until the Middle Ages in Western Europe, the very idea of risk was ignored. Indeed, risk has to do with projecting, extending time in the future, hence the need to tackle forthcoming prospects. Risk requires being enlightened about the future. But time, however, according to the church precepts in Europe until the 15th century, time belongs to God. So the emergence of European capitalism could not have taken place without the emancipation of time from the grasp of religion during the Renaissance in the 15th and 16th century. The history of risk management has been a long journey in which mathematicians, physicists, statisticians, merchants, and economists have tested various ways and means of reducing uncertainty to manage volatility and take reasonable risk. That started with Pascal and Fermat in 1654, who came up with probability distributions as the basis of statistical calculations, up to Mandelbrot in the 1970s and his fractal geometry to tackle the so-called tail-end risk that is outside the bell curve or normal distribution. Well, the issue now is not only defining risk, but of course measuring risk. That's crucial to establish scenarios and to implement risk mitigation strategies. Here we have a number of French mathematicians in the 18th and 19th century, from Condorcet to Bachelier, who in 1900 studied the probability of distribution of asset prices variations in the stock market. Once speculators have incorporated all available knowledge into their trades, prices will show unpredictable fluctuations independent of their past history. This is what is modernly called a random walk, and sigma is a measure of the price variation around the mean. It's a measure of volatility. Well, taking risk as a consequence of uncertainty, the issue then is first of all listing the main risk. Second, their probability of occurrences. Third, the timing of the risk. And finally, the specific impact on your strategy. This strategy will make possible to identify risk mitigation instruments, as we shall see down the road, and to implement a risk diversification strategy. That's exactly what a bank like Société Générale has attempted to do for measuring the risk of large unknown shocks, the so-called black swans. As we shall see shortly in this seminar, country risk is a specific and fascinating case of risk management as it combines country, a sovereign entity, and risk. Wrap up. The name of the game to reduce uncertainty and to manage country risk is to build up a robust and reliable access to a wide range of information sources. And this is the best way to stay ahead of the game and not to lose your job and your shirt. That's what we shall discuss all along this seminar. Thank you.